Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Real Movie Talk. This is the show where we talk everything films and the industry that surrounds them. I'm your host, Dec, and with me, as always, is Ben.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
And in this episode today, we're going to be taking a look back at 2020 thus far. We are around halfway through the year, and we're going to be doing our own personal top 5 films of 2020 so far. Obviously, 2020 has not been the year we expected it to be, especially just talking about films. We were expecting a lot more films to have come out in cinemas by this point, but due to a certain thing that shall not go named, that has been disrupted, and we've not been able to do that. So our lists are a bit more limited, but we have come up with a top 5 each, and I'm very interested to hear what yours are. How has 2020, despite everything going on, how has it been for you so far, for movie wise?
I mean, it's been pretty bad, not gonna lie. I don't know. I talked to you about this just before, but like me, is seeing films in the cinema, and I really have very little motivation to watch new films. I can watch old films at home, no problem. But to watch new films online, like Netflix or Amazon or something, I have very little motivation to do that. So unless it's something that I'm really interested in, chances are I'm probably not gonna watch it. So maybe I missed out on some great stuff. There's some stuff that I want to catch up on. But we mentioned this earlier, like premium VOD or whatever they call it now. Like it's so expensive, and I can't justify buying some of these films that I don't know. I don't even have that much interest in. But I'm like, oh, maybe I want to watch some of these Sundance films or South by Southwest films. Like, what was that new one? I haven't watched yet. I want to watch it. It's called like Sometimes, Never, Rarely, Always or something. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
It's something like that. It really intrigues me, but so much. So, I mean, I would have seen these films if they were in the cinema, no doubt about it. But so for me, right now, 2020 has been one of the most disappointing years of film so far for me.
Yeah, it's definitely been an odd one, an unprecedented one. I think for what we got in the cinema thus far, before everything shut down, I think it was okay. I think there's been some really good stuff, some really enjoyable stuff. Um, but then there's also been a lot of just meh stuff. Like 2020's been like, I'm looking at my just films I've watched this year, like my ranking of every film I've seen this year so far, and there's a lot of meh on there. There really is. It's only really when you get into my top 10 so far where I'm like, oh, okay, this is where we actually start to pick up things a little bit. But, from things that have been coming out on VOD, I haven't really been watching a lot of that. Like, I've watched couple of things here and there. Like I watched Bloodshot when that came out, even though it technically did get a cinematic release before everything shut down. I didn't get to see it. My Spy, which I know has just been released on Amazon Prime in the US, it got released on Prime here a few weeks ago. I did check that out. But it's just not the same. It's cool that we get the opportunity to do those things and we can check these things out, but it's still not the same as actually just being in the cinema and watching them. And in regards to the rest of the year, obviously, it's completely up in the air. We don't know what's happening. It seemed like things were on track to reopen next month. I mean, cinemas here in the UK are supposedly opening from, they can open from July
Fourth.
4th. But I know like Cineworld is opening on July 10th. I think Odeon is the same. So we'll see how things go. I mean, cinemas here in the UK are planning to re-release a lot of classic films, like the Dark Knight trilogy and Inception and Back to the Future and The Empire Strikes Back. Um, but we're not actually getting any new releases until August. So
Yeah,
we'll have to wait and
I
see.
mean,
And that's still up in the air. That could change.
like in regards to like cinemas opening, I think we should like at least mention this at the start. So I'm glad you brought it up. Like I know obviously the way things are in the world right now, there will be some people that are desperate to go back to cinemas and will take precautions when going to the cinema, be very safe and everything. I think I fall into that camp. Like I'm desperate to go back, and I'm going to be honest. I will go back like as soon as it open, but I'll be careful. I won't be dumb or anything. But there's also people who like really want to go back, but just won't risk it, right? So I think everyone's in a tricky situation. Do we go? How much do we go? Do we not go? And with cinemas opening in the UK, even though like Tenet and Mulan have been pushed back, and basically the first new film is going to be on the 31st of July, I think in America maybe they'll hold off the openings of cinemas, but I got a feeling that they're gonna hold on to this date because it's only like a few weeks before, and if they are releasing these classic films, I think they will have a certain amount of people coming. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to the cinema. I'm gonna be as safe as can be. I won't, affect anyone to the best of my ability, but I'm looking forward to it. I think you mentioned that you were a bit more hesitant about going back, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very, very kind of careful since things happened. I mean, as soon as the lockdown happened, I was working. Luckily and fortunately, I'm in a job that allows me to basically work anywhere as long as I have a computer. I can do my job. So I was working from home for quite some time. Then I was furloughed for 6 weeks, and I literally didn't go outside. It was my birthday last Monday, and that was the first time I've actually been outside into the world, into civilization for months.
Mm.
So I've only just started going, and I actually went this week. I went into HMV for the first time in a
Yeah, me
while,
too.
which was obviously that opened this week, and that was quite nice. I was able to treat myself with some money I got for my birthday and stuff. But I have been very, very careful, and for me, the idea of sitting in a room with potentially 30, 40 other people, all breathing the same air, does worry me a little bit. Luckily, here in the UK, things have started to get better-ish. It's still not good, but it's better than what it was. Also, for me personally, like I've always said to people close to me and stuff like that, if in regards to cinemas, if the precautions put in place are convincing enough to me, like me personally, I will consider it, because especially if something, for something like Tenet, like I have to see that in cinema. Like I have to see that in cinema. Like it's Nolan's next film. It looks fantastic. It's my second most anticipated of the year. I have to see that. And, I feel like if the precautions are in place and I know I can be careful and, things like that, I very well may consider it. But it all comes down to what they actually do and how they handle it. Because it might not be good and it might be a risk. And I don't know. I'm very, very careful, and I don't want to have like all of this time I've spent, sort of being super careful and literally not going outside, to kind of be squandered by one trip to the cinema. So I don't know. It's a bit of a tricky one. Like I say, I don't know if I'm going to go back straight away, like when they're showing these classic films, just because I don't really see that as a necessity. Like if I can watch those films at home, if I really want to, I can. I might, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But when things actually start to come out again, like new releases, that's when I may be tempted to re-enter Civilization. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one for me, but we'll see what happens. I do now have a mask. I do, which you're probably wondering why I haven't bought one already, but it's just because I've literally not been outside, so I've not needed one. But I do have one now, so that may be something I'll actually start to use if I go to the cinema. So yeah, when new releases come out, I am going to be a lot more tempted, especially because that will allow me to review more stuff. Because I've not been doing hardly any reviews in the last few weeks, but yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, but we'll see what happens. So is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I guess I'm just a bit more tempted by the classic films
Yeah, I mean,
than
don't
some.
get me wrong. Like, if this was normal, I'd be absolutely bang up for this. Especially like
Yeah.
I never got to see the Dark Knight trilogy in cinemas, so that would be
Uh,
insane to me. Like, I know you've seen a couple of them, because they kind of get shown off in London, to what I understand.
yeah.
So
I
you've had that experience, but I've never got to
Last
see them.
film I saw cinema was The Dark Knight Rises and The Dark Knight,
Yeah, like I would
actually, in
totally
March.
be down to that. Same with like Back to the Future and Empire Strikes Back. Like to see like a classic Star Wars film on the big screen would be pretty insane. It's not like as much of a necessity on my list. Like I say, I very well may end up going, but as of right now, I'm just a little unsure. But anyway, talking about our top five of the year thus far, I think you should kick us off with your number five, because I'm very interested to hear what your list is so far. Given the fact that you've not seen all too much, this is like the one time ever where I've actually seen more than you. So I'm excited to see what your list is as a whole. So you can kick us off with number five.
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen I've seen 18 films this year in total. I counted them up, and I mean, most of them were in the cinema. I saw The High Note at home. I saw Capone at home. I saw this German film or the Austrian film called The Ground Beneath My Feet at home. And then two on my list are ones I've watched at home. So basically, I haven't watched that many at home, so I'm obviously a bit, I don't have as much films to go through. But I will say this, to be honest, past my top five, some of them are good. Like I like them quite a lot, but a lot of them were kind of disappointing in my view. So I haven't loved 2020 in films, but my top five are very solid, I think. And so my number five is 7500, the new film with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So he returns in this film after like a what was it, like a 3 4 year break or something like that since he last showed up. And so 7500 is set in a plane, mainly set in this cockpit, and it plays like a ticking clock, minute by minute, second by second. Forces like literally everything is all happening within this cockpit, and all these choices are being forced to make, like that his specific character is being forced to make, because like it's basically him, a few people who attack the cockpit, who end up getting into the cockpit, and he has to make all these tricky decisions. And the thing that I loved about this film, number one, it was really, really tense. Like I think the filmmaking is absolutely the best part about the film. Obviously, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is amazing as per normal. He's one of my favorite working actors today, and there is a constant sense of anxiety, and there is this constant suspense throughout. And I think it's really down to the director and the writer, Patrick Volderath. You probably haven't heard of him. This is his first debut film, so this is his first feature film. He was nominated for his short film at the Academy Awards a few years ago. I haven't actually seen it, but that's, I guess, his most notable thing. So this is probably how he got it. And so, we see Joseph Gordon-Levitt return to this. You kind of, when you see the trailer or when you see the plot, you're like, oh, this is going to be an action film. This is going to be like, a Liam Neeson non-stop film. But it's not an action film. It's nothing similar to non-stop. And, it's not, it never was supposed to be. So don't go in expecting this to be a Liam Neeson film, because it's not. It's actually
Good, because that
more
movie's
along,
bollocks.
exactly. It's more along the lines of a European drama, because number one, the director is German. It's funded by German and I think Austrian companies. And so then Amazon picked it up for like US distribution. I think it was set to play at some festivals. So it's very understated. It's very controlled, and is set in this confined setting. It really gets to show off the direction from Vodorath. And I think he is one to look out for. I really, really loved his direction. I think it's one of the best directed films I've seen this year. The cinematography is absolutely brilliant. It does this thing where it just lingers. Like it allows the actors to be fully immersed in this world. It doesn't cut like constantly, like non-stop. I keep on referring to it, but it's an aeroplane film, and it's more like a nuanced sort of European drama, and I really appreciated the filmmaking behind it. There is a freedom to the camera where it's constantly rolling. Yeah, it cuts between, say, basically there's the cockpit. At one point, there is the CCTV footage, like from, like if the pilot turns around, so he can see, like if the, like what are they called? The people who give you food on a plane.
Oh, the air stewardesses.
Yeah, the air stewardesses, if they're there to like, oh, do you want your food or whatever? So that's basically the only perspective you see of the rest of the plane. And I also have to mention the opening. Once you see the film, I won't spoil it, but mainly it's just such a brilliant opening. Nothing is explained. You just jump right into it. It's just a load of mysterious images, and you can feel that there's something about to happen. And then it just cuts to pilot talk when they are boarding the plane. Joseph Gordon-Levitt gets on. One of the air stewardesses turns out to be his wife, and they try and it's just some chitter chatter basically. It jumps from these mysterious images to this chitter chatter, and then everything starts, and the tension just constantly rises. And I think the thing that was most clear for me was the direction and the fact that he had so much passion behind this film, and he really, really knows how to evoke fear. Like, I've listened to his interviews, and he clearly is a very talented filmmaker, and he understands how to bring these sort of art house elements to a genre of thrills, which is the aeroplane kind of film, because it is kind of a staple in like the action film genre. And so I think it's a really coherent film, and I think, you know, the direction is one of the key moments, key points of why this film works so well, and it's really tightly knit together. And 7500, it's on Amazon Prime now. Go check it out. It's really, really good, and I loved it. And you guys should, even if, because you don't know the director, I'm sure none of you know the director because he's a new director, but if you're a Joseph Gordon-Levitt fan, watch it. Or if you like European films, watch it.
Yeah, I mean, we were actually talking about this film just before we started recording. I haven't seen it yet, but it is one I'm planning to review. It's a plug for me. But I think that this film, it just grabbed my interest instantly because it does sort of take a different spin and a different genre on, like you say, this typical kind of film. When you look at a plane hijacking film, like you say, you would expect it to be a bit more action orientated. But this seems to be a lot more of a suspenseful thriller, which I think is a really interesting take. Being set in one location, pretty much. I think that's a really interesting idea. So I'm definitely excited to check this out. It looks great. I've heard great things, and I really like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and this is his first movie since Snowden, is it? I think so. So it's quite a big movie, so I'm quite excited to check this out. And the fact it's on Amazon Prime is obviously even better. So that's also, if you don't know, it is on Amazon Prime, so you can check it out right now. It's a great film. Well, supposedly a great film. I've not seen it yet, but I will.
It's
My number 5 is a film that I was excited about, but I didn't expect to love it anywhere near as much as I did, which is Greed. Greed stars Steve Coogan, and this film's directed by Michael Winterbottom, who's quite an established British director at this point. He's directed quite a lot of films that are pretty well regarded, particularly among British film critics. But Greed for me was a film that I kind of went into. I thought I would enjoy it because I'm a big fan of British comedy. Everyone knows this. And the main reason this film grabbed my attention, sticking with the British comedy, is that this film, one of its co-stars is David Mitchell, who is one of my favourite comedians. He is the star of the British comedy Peep Show, which is my favourite British comedy of all time, my favourite comedy series, probably my second favourite TV series of all time. I adore Peep Show. I literally just have it on a constant loop all the time, and it never fails to make me laugh. I think David Mitchell is hysterical. So when I saw him sort of being quite a big lead in a film, I was pretty excited. And this film just really, I just find it super enjoyable. Like, I mean, mainly for the fact that the movie is really, really funny to me personally, because again, that British comedy, that dry sense of humor is very appealing to me. That is my sense of humor. So it works really well. Steve Coogan in this role is extremely convincing and extremely fun. The prosthetics and the fake teeth that he has in the film really do transform his performance quite a bit, and I do enjoy his mannerisms with everyone else, because this character is awful. The movie is essentially about this guy he's this rich billionaire of this very large corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporation. He's extremely rich, and it's his 60th birthday party, and he's throwing this huge party in Greece, in Mykonos, to basically try and re-establish his image. He's kind of had his image tarnished over the last few years, and he's trying to basically rebuild his image by inviting all these famous celebrities and these famous big names. And it's all about the planning of this party, but there's also a lot more going on, because you have David Mitchell, who plays this reporter trying to basically write a book on his life, and then you've got a lot of family drama with him and his character. He has a lot of drama with his family, especially his son, played by Asa Butterfield, and his ex-wife, played by Isla Fisher. And it's just this story that actually goes along in a way that I didn't expect. The film does play on a lot of themes to do with slavery and also to do with exploitation, and how big corporations like Monda, which is the one that he owns, exploits sweatshops in, less fortunate countries and things like that. And the film kind of explores the effect that it has on that. And we see, like, the real people involved in that. And so while the film is very funny, and the film does have a sort of great era of self-awareness about it, it also plays on a lot of really serious themes. It also plays on the idea of reality as well, reality TV series and stuff like that. As his daughter is actually played by Sophie Cuxton, is actually a star of a sort of Only Way Is Essex sort of play sort of thing, and we get to see how that affects people in that realm and stuff like that. Like, the movie tackles quite a lot. And then ultimately the film ends in a way that I just did not expect. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it's just, it came out of nowhere. I thought it was absolutely surprising. And I don't think the ending will necessarily work for everyone because it is quite a tonal shift, but it's because I didn't expect it so much. It really grabbed me, and I found it really just such a shockingly entertaining ending. And I think a lot of people will either really like the ending or will be really put off by it. And then in terms of the general reception of the film, it's interesting because I see a lot of people didn't really enjoy this, and I can kind of understand why. The film has such an unlikable lead to the point where you may not be able to get behind it. This is the problem I had with the film Wild Rose that came out last year, or 2 years ago, which was that I just could not get behind that film because I found the lead so unlikable. And I think a lot of people could have that with Greed. Because the film, as I say, it does as funny as it does tackle a lot of big issues, and because this character is essentially the lead and we're supposed to be following him, it can be sort of told from a certain perspective, even though I do think the film does a good job of covering both sides. I just think that Greed is just a extremely funny film, and to be honest, I don't know if I would have been as invested in it if it wasn't for the fact that David Mitchell was in it and was such a prominent presence, but I really enjoyed it. I've watched it a couple of times in the cinema. It comes out on Blu-ray, I think, on Monday here in the UK, so I'm very excited to go pick that up and watch it again. I just thought it was thoroughly enjoyable, and again, actually went deeper and was a lot more surprising than I thought it was going to be just based on the trailer.
Oh, yeah, it seems interesting. It was just something that I wasn't interested in. I was gonna see it at the London Film Festival earlier last year. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, not a huge fan of that type of film, so it doesn't call out to me, but I can see how a lot of people like it. And I'm happy it's a film that, you know, it was kind of divisive, right? A little bit.
It was divisive, yeah.
I'm at least happy that you like it because, I like some divisive films. I hate some films that are not divisive, so it's good to see, at least.
Yeah, it's pretty. It was pretty divisive. I remember sort of being in group chats and stuff of people watching the movie, and I remember in this particular group chat I was in when I came out of the film, I was the only one who actually really enjoyed it. So I don't know. Like I say, I think it's just because I'm such a huge fan of British comedy and I love David Mitchell, but I really did enjoy the film and I found it genuinely surprising. So that's where it lands.
Oh, yeah, maybe I'll check it out someday. All right, my number 4 pick is dun, dun, dun. I think you're probably expecting this. Birds of Prey.
Yes.
Yeah. So Birds of Prey, I really like Birds of Prey. The first time I watched it, I was actually at the world premiere, so it was absolutely amazing to
those pictures
see all
awesome.
the freaking I got to meet Margot Robbie, I got to talk to her, got to talk to Mary Elizabeth Winstead, to get photos and everything like that.
Yeah, those pictures with you and Yaz are awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just like a big, overwhelming event. And then I think I saw the film like 2 more times, and liked it more and more every time, actually, because the first time I walked out, I was like, wow, this is a really good film. There's still bits I'm not so sure about. Like, for instance, I was really excited because I loved the trailers for Birds of Prey. I was really excited about that sort of Marilyn Monroe scene. Do you remember that from the trailer? And it was just some editing choices in the film at first where I was like, I'm not so sure about this. And to be honest, to this day, I'm not so sure about some of those editing choices where they speed them up and everything like that. I thought they could have done maybe something else with that Marilyn Monroe scene. I don't know. It looked very elegant and it was kind of cut like a music video a little bit. So there's some bits that I wasn't so keen on. Maybe that was because I was so excited about seeing these specific scenes because I watched the trailer so many damn times. And so maybe, but then watching the film over and over again, got to see it in the cinema like 3 times or something like that. I really enjoyed it like even more every time, and I really liked it the first time. But like I said, I had a few problems, and I think those problems are still kind of there, but they're less for me now. And so, what really I took away from Birds of Prey, I loved the style of the film. It's really colorful. It really works. I think it's very well directed, and I thought it was just a great ride. Like it's a ride. It's just from start to finish, it's well made, it's shot really nicely with great color, and it's just very sleek. Like, I don't see too many, like, it's not like just your normal blockbuster film. I think there is a lot more energy within inside of it. I think there is an actual style behind the film, and I really appreciate that they just continue with that they actually cared about what they were filming rather than so I rather than just like some random shit like Suicide Squad. Like, oh, it was so bad, Suicide Squad. And
I
so
like
Margot
it.
Rob, no, I know you like it. Anyway, Margot Robbie is on top form. She's great as Harley. She really killed it. She totally stepped on everything that wasn't good about Suicide Squad in terms of her character, in my opinion. I thought she really brought it in this film. She's quirky, she's even more lovable. And Ewan McGregor, man, he is so good. Definitely my favorite DCEU villain, not my favorite DC villain. Obviously, that's like down to the Dark Knight trilogy, like any of those villains. And yeah, so it was really great, and I really appreciated how hard it actually leaned into the R rating behind of it. Obviously, that's a different thing in England. It's 15. R rating basically means, like not suitable for kids, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think I really admire it for it. I thought nothing's held back. It feels real, although, with style. Like, and I think that's the thing that I love most about it. And when I look back, the experience of watching Birds of Prey in the cinema is the style, like how kind of vibrant and how it just kind of keeps that same thing, that same style throughout. And I love that in a director, and I love that in a film. So I really love Birds of Prey. So that's my number four.
And my number four is also Birds of Prey. Um, yeah, Birds of Prey I was really excited about. I mean, what's kind of funny is I actually gave Birds of Prey a lot of crap in its run up because I wasn't a fan of how they marketed the film. And still to this day, I still think they marketed this movie completely wrong. It's very evident to me that they wanted to make a Harley Quinn spin off, but calling it Birds of Prey, I found a bit disingenuous to the characters because I felt like they just stuck Margot Robbie all over the promotional material, which, granted, is completely fair enough. Harley Quinn is extremely marketable, and she is easily one of the most popular characters to come out of the DCEU. Doing a spin off, I don't begrudge them for at all. I just found it very. I found it very almost rude to the other actors in the film, given the fact that this was quite an ensemble cast, and quite a lot of the other cast members didn't really get a lot of play in the marketing. So for that, I gave the film a lot of stick. But besides that, I was still pretty excited to check the film out. And when I came out of it, I was very, very impressed. Like, I thought the film was excellently done. I think Cathy Ann, she, as you were mentioning, her style is very prevalent. I think that the style in particular and the vibe of the movie, it just feels so consistent because I really enjoy the vibrancy of the colors, the way the movie's shot is very well done, and the music and the score is also a real standout for me. Like particularly the soundtrack that they released beforehand has it's all licensed music, but unlike Suicide Squad where it was just random songs here and there, all of the music done for this film were all really thematic and fit the movie really well. And it just further boosted my kind of love for it because when I was watching the film, I could hear these songs that I had listened to beforehand and I loved them. And then basically on the drive home from the movie, I had those songs on in the car and it was just awesome. And the cast itself is great. Like, obviously, Margot Robbie is incredible as Harley Quinn. I think that performance is just so dead on. She's one of the most perfect comic book castings of all time. And she really nails it in the movie completely. I loved everything she did with this film and in this role. I think they really added a lot more depth to Harley Quinn in this film as well, which I really enjoyed. I think that she wasn't as one note as she was in Suicide Squad. Not that she was particularly one note, but I think in this film she added a bit more depth to her and added a bit more humanity to her. Like we kind of saw beneath the surface of the character a bit more, which I personally really, really enjoyed. And then I also really enjoyed all the other cast members as well, particularly Jodie Smollett-Bell as Black Canary. That was a big standout for me. Black Canary was a character I was really excited about to see in this film. Obviously, because I'm such a huge fan of Arrow and I love Black Canary over there. I was very excited to see what they did with the character here, and I thought she was honestly the one of the big standouts for me in the film. She was definitely one of them. And I also really enjoy Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. Incredible villain performance. Definitely the best villain of the DCEU thus far. Just really entertaining, really funny, and also very. You could see Ewan McGregor was having a lot of fun with the role. You could see he was really sort of, reveling in it and just having a great time being bad, which I thought was really fun. Just the action was really creative. Like the scene in the fairground towards the end, an amusement mile was really well handled. You see like Harley Quinn using roller skates at one point in a chase sequence, and you have the sequence on the slide and the turntable. It's just really creatively done, and it allowed Margot Robbie to really use her athleticism in these fight scenes, which was really nice and interesting. So I think Birds of Prey was excellent. I thought it was really well done. I do think it is. I'd say it's my second favorite film of the DCEU. It's just behind Shazam. I would say it's probably better than Shazam. I think the film is just really great and a lot of great fun, and I think it's a really good ride, like you say. I think the film definitely delivered on what it promised to do, and I think even though I could have done with a bit more development on some of the other characters, like I think Huntress is pretty underserved, and I think Rosie Perez probably could have got a bit more to do, but for the most part, I think the film is really great, and it serves as a great Harley Quinn spin-off. It serves as a pretty decent Birds of Prey movie, and I still feel like it's a great addition to the DCEU.
Yeah, and I have to say, Ewan McGregor, man,
He's so good.
so good. And I love what you said. Like, he's so playful, and I think the film is very playful, and I laughed so much at this film. Very funny. I really appreciated that. Number 3 pick, and I know you've seen this, and I know you weren't so hot on it as far as your rankings, because I've seen your rankings. And this is Seberg, my number 3. I loved Seberg. It is easily one of my favorite films this year, and I missed it at the London Film Festival and the Zurich Film Festival. I just couldn't make the screenings, which was a shame because I was looking forward to it. And for me, I'm really fascinated about like film, like history, because it's just a thing that I love. And so Seberg is about Jean Seberg, the actress who was one of the biggest in her time. Obviously, at the point that this film shows, well, really, she wasn't like always that big, but she sort of is very well known now because of, Breathless and some of her works before. And I was fascinated by this before. I saw the trailers, I saw everything. I was like, and I read the reviews, they were very mixed on the film. So I was very interested to see how I would take it. And I landed on the complete other side. I loved this film. It was intensely engrossing and moving, and I thought it was just such a fascinating topic. I was just swept up in the film. I saw this in the cinema. I was invited to go to Universal, and like it was just a totally sort of like out of body experience. I was just totally absorbed in this world, and it was very, very poetic in the way that the images sort of related to the innocence of Jean, as it sort of visually tracks along her breakdown of like her mind and soul. Get this great shot near the start with Jean, kind of all in her makeup and everything. She's looking all great, and she's looking in the mirror, and then by the end of the film you get this mirror shot again, but it's by the end of the film. And there was just a few moments like that really lingered in my mind. I think this film is brilliant. I think it's shot absolutely brilliantly, and it's beautiful to look at. It's really carefully tuned, and Kristen Stewart, man, she is one of the best actresses working today, or best actors, like, out there right now. She is incredible, and I think she's really underrated. I would have nominated her. I would have put her up for Oscar nominations. I don't know if it qualifies for this year or last year. I'm not sure how, like, when it was released in America, but I thought she was perfect for the role. I think it's definitely her best film ever, and I think she's able to convey so much through her actions. And she doesn't have to do much. She can just look, she can stare, and it says so much. I think it's really she really performs with this heartfelt and this heartfelt sense, but also this heart wrench because you see it all within her eyes. There is more like said through the looks of the film rather than what is spoken. Well, that's what I got out of it, and I think it's really well directed. The cinematography is beautiful, and it really encapsulated a feeling of warmth for me, and beauty, and this sort of sense of beauty in it kind of just left me speechless as I left the film. And so I think I'm a fan of films like this, sort of you know it's very similar. A lot of people haven't seen this film, but it's very similar, and it owes a lot to Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. The conversation starts, and basically it's kind of similar. It's about these people, this guy, who are watching these subjects, right? They listen in, they they're basically spying on them the whole film, and this sort of surveillance side of things. And you have that angle of how the media were told about like what was happening in Gene Seberg's life at the time. This is based on a real story. Like I said, the topic is fascinating because Jean was helping out the Black Panthers. She was advocating for all of this stuff that the American government didn't agree with. And so at one point, you get to see, you know, this audio and you get to see this angle of them surveilling her and you really feel for her. But then you also have her angle where you get to understand her struggles and everything like that. And I think Seberg has a lot of depth to it, and I can't wait to rewatch it. I haven't rewatched it since I saw it in the cinema. I think it was just nice to sort of look back and imagine how it was like to watch this film in the cinema, because it really, really got to me. And I think, Kristen Stewart is the beating heart of this film, along with the direction and cinematography. And I love this film. I could talk about it all day. Yeah. So my number three is Seberg.
It's really nice to actually see someone like super passionate about Seberg. I gotta say, like it's genuinely nice to see like this real burning passion for it, because I mean I've seen Seberg and I didn't particularly dislike the film. I thought it was fine. I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. Like I say, I actually think Kristen Stewart does a decent job in the role. I think the story is pretty good. I just thought the film just didn't really grab me that much. Like I thought it was fine. I had a decent time with it, but I probably wouldn't ever watch it again. But yeah, it was actually a bit more surprising. But it's nice to see someone actually have this kind of deep love for it. It's quite nice. My number three, and this is actually a surprise for me as well, is The Gentleman. This is the latest film from Guy Ritchie. Now, obviously, I know you have a bit of history with Guy Ritchie. Were you involved in this in any way?
Yeah, I worked on this film,
Yeah,
and this was just missing my list. I really liked The Gentleman. It was really good, very stylish, and yeah, so I worked. What did I do? Location scouting. So for some of the apartment blocks, like that they go up, and it's been a while since I watched the film. I watched it in January, but so I did location scouting. I was on the set, like where Michel Dockery like works, and his base of
yeah,
operations, like the car garage.
yeah.
I was there. I was just I was basically doing work experience. I wasn't working as per se, but like it was really cool. I got to like meet Matthew McConaughey, and obviously Guy Ritchie was there directing. I've seen him a few times, and yeah, it was really cool being on the set. I At first it was called Tough Guys,
Oh
then
really?
they called it Bush. I was like, what the hell is that name? And then they called it Gentleman. I like the Gentleman, but I remember when this project, like they just finished Aladdin, because Guy Ritchie directed Aladdin, and they just finished Aladdin. When was that? That was 2018 summer, right? They just finished Aladdin, and then they were like, "Oh, we've got the script. We're gonna get everyone who worked on Aladdin and just bring them over to the Gentleman."
Right.
So that's why I got to work on the film, because I worked on Aladdin. So we went over. They were like trying to explain to me. They were like, "Read this part of the script. It's about these guys, they're sort of gangsters, and they you work with like these rich people who have underground like weed farms. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This sounds more Guy Ritchie than Aladdin.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
like
so
this was definitely a sort of return to form to Guy Ritchie.
yeah,
Well,
and
return to form is not quite the right word, but you know, a return to his stomping ground.
his style, yeah. Like I don't know, The Gentleman. I loved it. I thought it was really good. So yeah, you review it now.
Yeah, The Gentleman. It was a genuine shock to me because Guy Ritchie is a very hit or miss director to me. Like there are some films of his that he's made that I really like, such as The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I do, as you know, we watched it together. I really loved the remake of Aladdin. I thought it was great. Actually, I still love that remake of
So good.
Aladdin to this day. Um, but then he's also made some other films that I'm not too hot on, like the King Arthur movie from a few years ago, which I thought was kind of abysmal. So he's a very, very hit or miss director to me. And while I'm not too well versed in his filmography, I've not seen a lot of his older films that are a lot more aligned with this, like Snatch and Lock, Stock. I've not seen those. This was kind of my first, dabble into his known style. This film genuinely surprised me because the trailer I thought was good, but it didn't really, it didn't get me super hyped or anything. But the film, oh, I found it so enjoyable, so much fun. I think that the cast here is definitely the standout. Like this film has just gave me. It's one of the most. I'd say it's probably the most quotable movie of the year for me so far. Me and my friend, when we have conversations a lot of the time, we'll quote this movie. Just there's so many brilliant moments. Particularly Hugh Grant is fantastic here. This is such a different role for him. Like obviously Hugh Grant is known for, ironically, being the gentleman. In films, he's very posh. He's very well spoken. But in this film, he's very sleazy. You can tell he's got a lot of history, and I really enjoyed his performance there. Charlie Hunnam was really good in this as well, which Charlie Hunnam is an actor who I do quite like. So to see him kind of get a bigger role like this, I thought was great. Michelle Dockery was a big standout for me here. She was fantastic. I loved Matthew McConaughey in the movie. Like I didn't know you'd met him. That's awesome. But I think that and also Henry Golding as well. I really liked as well, even though I did not buy him as a gangster for a 1 minute. I do. I just like Henry Golding in general as a guy, so I think he was really good in this as well. I enjoyed his performance, despite how unconvincing he was. I just enjoyed his presence. But the rest of the film, for me, I just found it like a film that I could easily just sit back with and enjoy and just really get on board with. While the film isn't particularly amazing or completely, top tier stuff, I think it's really just entertaining. I think that's what it set out to do. I think it set out just to be this really entertaining, British gangster film, and that's exactly what you get with this. And it's fairly lighthearted. It's very funny. It's very comedic. And then when the action's there, it's very grounded. It's very gritty, and I enjoy all that stuff. And the movie is definitely not afraid to, to really get down and dirty in a lot of ways. I forgot to mention Colin Farrell as well. He's the other big standout. He's fantastic in this, and his little crew that he assembles in the movie is great. Particularly, obviously, it has Franz Drummer, who's great. I met him a few years ago. He's awesome. So I just think The Gentleman, like, it was a surprise to me because, like I say, Guy Ritchie is just a director who I can go into his films and either be really impressed and really enjoy it, or be like, that was fine or underwhelming. And given the fact that I wasn't super hyped about this, the fact that I came away from this wanting to watch it again immediately, I think says a lot about it. Like, I literally came out of the movie and I went straight to Tesco afterwards, as I typically do, to sort of just get some stuff. And I was saying to myself and to my friend who I watched the movie with, I was saying, I just want to watch that again, like, right now. Like, I want to watch that right now. And we were like, we just couldn't wait for the Blu-ray to come out. And I have the Blu-ray now, so I'm excited to go check that out again. But fantastic film. I was super impressed with it. And again, it's one of the more enjoyable films of the year for me.
Yeah, it was really good, and I definitely think for me, standout performances were definitely it was in King Arthur. Oh my god, I'm blanking.
Charlie Hunnam?
Charlie Hunnam. I think he's the best in the film. I love Charlie Hunnam. I thought he was amazing. I really liked Hugh Grant, and Colin Farrell was great. I think Matthew McConaughey does a very fine job. I don't think he did anything special. I think it was just like because the other members of the cast were like really on the game. Maybe it didn't just stand out as much, but I really liked him still.
I mean, he's very, very Matthew McConaughey in it. But
Yeah,
I just enjoy, it's kind of interesting because obviously he's like known as the American in this. He's kind of like the only American in it, and his performance does kind of stand apart from the others I found.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, anyway, so moving on to my number two. So now we're moving on to like the five-star films. Like I think Seabug is sort of classed in this for me. I think the top three for me are like the best of the best this year from what I've seen. And I think they're all sort of worthy of like Oscar nominations and stuff, in my opinion. And so my number two is Spike Lee's new film, Defy Bloods. I was so excited for this film, and it really delivered. And it's honestly brilliant, and it's so unorthodox in its methods, in its use of montage, shaping the screen with like images of just the way the film opens with the images of the black soldiers in
Yeah,
Vietnam, spliced together with speeches from Malcolm X, Bobby Seale. You have all of this, along with, the extremely graphic images of wartime violence and, the effect that it had on people of, all races and everything like that. You see poverty in the streets of Harlem. You see murder via the hand of law enforcement, and it's just the way it's put together, especially that opening scene, just really, really reflected the time, and it still reflects the time that we're living in right now, especially over in America. And obviously, it does reflect the world because it's not just about America; it's about the system of the whole world. And so, I think I really admired the way that it just like straight got to the point. The opening holds nothing back. It sets a precedent for what has actually gone on to be one of my favorite Spike Lee films, and it's one of his most powerful films. And the opening is with Marvin Gaye's Inner City Blues as this montage starts. And I think really for me, I can't talk about Spike Lee films without talking about music, because I think to talk about his films without music is almost criminal, because there is a sense of giddiness and pure joy that I feel when I listen to or when I watch that specific scene where Marvin Gaye's Got to Give It Up plays in the Vietnamese club
yeah,
as the crew, as they dance the whole way across the dance floor.
yeah.
Like, it's
That's become like the
so
shot, isn't it?
good.
That's become like the
It
shot of
is
the
the
movie.
shot. That is my favorite scene of the year. It's so good. I can't tell you how great I felt watching it. I just was like, this. The last time I had a feeling like that was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood last year, when I don't know, it's always music for me. I'm a huge music fan, especially of Marvin Gaye. I've always loved Marvin Gaye. And just like I said, last year, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when they went to the Playboy Mansion and they start just dancing across the whole mansion, like outside. I was like, in the cinema, I was like, oh, this is why I love films. This feels like, what cinema is supposed to be to me. And that's a similar feeling to what I had when Marvin Gaye's Got to Give It Up plays and they literally rip their way across the whole dance floor. I was like, this is why I love films. Like, to give you a feeling, like you get this feeling. And I think music plays a big part in it, and it obviously plays a big part in Spike Lee's films. And it was like, that specific scene was like, something straight out of like Soul Train or something. Like, I don't know if you've seen Soul Train, but it's like it was a dance show where the crowd would just dance to soul music and to Motown and everything. And it was just, oh, it's so good. And anyway, so I really, really loved how because Marvin Gaye was one of the well, he is one of the best singers and best musicians of all time, in my opinion, and he is sort of this force that has defined music, right? And I think he defines his songs, this album that Spike Lee specifically chose, really defines this film. And his songs are the essence of what is Defy Bloods, in my opinion. And it's almost like he has his own voice or character in the film. And you can tell that Spike is putting in so much thought to, the use of these songs, because some of the moments from Gaye's lyrics actually create a portion of the most beautiful, honest, and tragic moments in the new film, whether the music's playing or not, or the characters just singing one of his songs. it's so provocative and thoughtful, and I really, really think this is Spike Lee on top form, and I could go on about that scene and the music like all day, but that was like really the core of what I think worked for me in this film. And I think it's exceptional how like the film balances all of its tones. It's really funny, but it's also very provocative, very tragic, and explosive at some points. It's, Spike has described it as like an epic. I don't know if I would necessarily say it is like an epic, but it's certainly got like the sort of mishmash of what could make an epic, because I don't know what specifically makes an epic, because I don't really call films epic. Not even like, Apocalypse Now or anything like that. So I don't know. To me, this film just does such a great job balancing all of these tones, and Delroy Lindo is amazing. Surely he's going to get nominated for an Oscar. But whilst everyone's buzzing about Delroy, you can't forget about the other cast members, because the four of them, the main people, so Delroy Lindo, then Clark Peters, Isaiah Whitlock Jr., and Norm Lewis, are incredible. They are so good. I would say Clark Peters and Isaiah Whitlock should be nominated for Oscars as well. Isaiah was my favorite performance of the film. I loved him. And I think, the fact that, these people, these actors, are able to portray and say so much. Like that one scene with Delroy Lindo when he's walking through the forest, man, what a scene. Like there is this sort of poetic nature to the screenplay that gives a sense of life to this film, and I love it, and it's shot really nicely. I love how it, goes between multiple aspect ratios. There are a few issues with CGI and stuff, but I looked over that like in a minute or so, because of the film and how great it is and how impactful it is. And so I really liked the different use of film stocks, like when they went back using Super 16 in the flashbacks. It was just so nice to look at. And I think it really creates a style of its own. Like that's been a thing with the films I've loved this year. I think it's mainly down to how they sort of approach, the way the film looks and the way it feels like when you watch it. So I loved The Five Bloods. I think it's one of the best films this year. It's my number 2 right now.
Yeah, I think The Five Bloods was fantastic. I also watched the film myself. I think that the film is, I'm not too well versed with Spike Lee. I've only seen Black Klansman, which obviously was his last film before this. And Black Klansman was a film I loved. And this, while I do still like Black Klansman more than this, I still thought this was great. Like you say, particularly Delroy Lindo, his performance was amazing. I genuinely think this film does have the most tension-filled moment of the year, though, so far. The part with, I don't want to go into too much detail just in case people haven't seen it, but the part with Delroy Lindo and his son is genuinely, like, I was genuinely kind of sweating at that point. I genuinely was a bit scared as to what was going to happen there. Also, like you say, the aspect ratios were fantastic. The way it changed for different eras of the movie, I thought really helped with establishing different time periods. And it just made the film interesting to look at because it just kept changing things up every now and then. It kept it fresh, kept it fun. And also, as you were mentioning and said fantastically, all the stuff with the music, it's just beautiful. I'm also a huge fan of Motown. I love Marvin Gaye. And the sort of recurrence of his music throughout, they say whether it's got to give it up in the nightclub, or Inner City Blues, which is quite heavily recurred throughout the film, and there's even the bit with what's going on. It's just really well implemented into the film, and it just adds so much more emotion and depth to it. And like you, I also get quite a giddy feeling when I sort of hear those lyrics kind of come up. It's really quite a special moment, and I think they really enhance the film. And I think that also the film, just visually, it looks stunning. Like watching this movie on Netflix in 4K, especially when you go back to those sort of Vietnam shots in the modern day, were just beautiful to look at. It was stunning. And I think that Spike Lee, what he did with this film, it's not only really creative but also really powerful. While I do feel like the film isn't perfect, like I do think it's slightly predictable, particularly when, again, I'll sort of skirt around this, but the part where, as I was mentioning about Delroy Lindo and his son, actually, it wasn't him. It was actually the character who got into that situation before him. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I kind of predicted that something along those lines was going to happen just based on these certain characters who were introduced. When those characters were introduced, I was like, okay, there's got to be something to do with that coming in because this it was like I just kind of saw it. I was like, it's a very weird thing, kind of just mention this right now. So I kind of predicted that, and while I think Spike Lee, he's known for doing this sort of stuff where he includes, obviously, in this film, all this old war footage, and it's quite harrowing, and it's quite, he did it in Black Klansman as well. I do feel like sometimes they can take away from the film. I do feel like Spike Lee kind of gets in his own way sometimes. I think Jordan Peele has the same issue, where they kind of take their important messaging that they're trying to bring across in the film, which they, in a lot of other ways, they do fantastically. But I do feel like they stick in these things of, real life footage and they kind of take away from the movie a little bit, like take you out of it a little bit. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. Like I say, I think it can be done in a way that is very complementary to the film. And like I say, I think in To Five Bloods, he does a lot of that. It's just those particular moments I don't really feel like are best suited to a film like this. Even though this film does feature a lot of, era-specific moments, I do feel like those particular real-life things can sort of take you out of the film a little bit. But I do feel like the film's great. I loved it. I thought it was really enjoyable and has some of the best performances. It's easily one of the best films of the year so far. And, if the Oscars were to happen tomorrow, this would easily be a contender for Best Picture. This would be a contender for, Best Performances. Delroy Lindo, I'm sure, would win Best Actor. So it's a great film, and I was also very, very impressed with it. But my number two, going in a completely different direction. And as you can tell, this is just purely nostalgia. When I watched this film, I didn't expect to, I thought I would enjoy it just from a nostalgia standpoint, but I didn't expect to love it anywhere near as much as I did. And that is Sonic the Hedgehog. This movie is not very good, but I love it. I think that this film is just when I heard they were making a Sonic movie, I was like, oh, here we go again. But every time there's a video game movie coming out, I'm always interested. I'm always engaged because I'm always like, can they do it? Can they make one that's good? And I think they came close with Tomb Raider. I do think they came close. I think Tomb Raider is decent.
I think it's the best.
I mean, to be fair, it probably is still the best till this point. But my personal favourite is Sonic. I grew up with Sonic completely. I adored Sonic growing up. I was just so into that franchise. I've played so many of the games. I was just so into it. And so going into this film, watching it, I was very excited. And I came away from it just thinking to myself, that film, it's not amazing. I do feel like the film does do a really good job of being both a film that's entertaining for kids and also entertaining for adults. I found both sides of my brain in that, because I sort of have the film reviewer side of my brain, and then I also have the, sort of the nostalgia side of my brain. And I kind of thought they were going to be at war with each other watching this film, and to a degree they were, but they weren't really as much as I thought they were going to be, because I came away from it thinking, yeah, that wasn't amazing, but God, it was a good time. I think Ben Schwartz as Sonic was a great casting for the voice. I thought he does a really good job of portraying the kind of cocky earnstiness of Sonic. That's quite a defining element of his personality. Is he's very cocky, he's very sure of himself, and I think that Ben Schwartz does a really good job of playing that, but also plays him with a sense of vulnerability as well. There's a lot of moments in the film where Sonic is kind of. It sounds like I'm talking really deep about Sonic, but he kind of is proposed as a loner and stuff like that, and he kind of plays that really well, especially when he's paired so well with James Marsden's character, who also I think does a really good job of playing, opposite him, because James Marsden is acting to nothing in the film essentially, and I think he does a good job with that. But the standout performance is absolutely Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, the way that he plays it. This is the most crazy Jim Carrey performance in a while. Jim Carrey has been off doing other stuff recently. He's kind of been moving away from those classic performances that he did in the 80s and the 90s that kind of defined him as an actor. But this is him going back to true balls to the wall, crazy performance, and it's just something to watch. Even if you don't care about the movie, even if you don't care about Sonic, just his performance alone, I think makes the movie worth a watch. It's just so wild, and it's so wacky and ballsy, and it's just crazy to watch him just go off on screen. And I think even CGI wise, like the film looks great. I think Sonic looks great CGI wise. And obviously, this film had quite the interesting journey. As when the first trailer came out, they first showed off this look of Sonic, and everyone was absolutely terrified. And everyone was just like, "This is horrible." And to the credit of the filmmakers, they actually went back and they changed it and they redid the animation for him. They made him look different, and he looks great in the movie. And I think the action's really fun. I like the way they portrayed his speed. You know, I think speed is a very interesting thing to portray on film because every version of like a speedster is done differently. And I think that this is very done. This is done very much in the way of Quicksilver in the X-Men films. That's how they kind of portray it, and I really like that. I think that's the best way of doing it. Sort of just doing it in slow motion, I think was really good. So yeah, the film's not amazing, but it's just a really light, entertaining, really fun film. And again, I think it's good for kids. I think it's great for adults. And if you're a fan of Sonic, I think you'll really enjoy it. Like, I genuinely got hyped at the post-credit scene. Like, when I saw Tails, I was hyped. I'm genuinely excited for a sequel to this. So yeah, it's obviously the big bit of nostalgia just kicking at my brain, but I can't help it, man. I really love this movie, and you know, I can't wait to watch it again. I now own it on 4K. I'm excited to check it out again because I just had a blast with it. I really did, and I found it just so, you know, personal to me as like such a huge fan of Sonic. And for me, like I said, as much as I do think Tomb Raider is probably the best video game movie up until this point, this is definitely my favorite.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. It's like my second least favorite
Yeah,
film.
I've seen it
I've
very
seen
low
this.
down in your list.
Yeah, I don't know. I grew up with Sonic as well, and I watched the film and I was like, oh, this is a bit disappointing. This is very disappointing. Like, I don't know. For me, it was just very, very Hollywood. It just felt like they went through all the stereotypes, and I just could not get into it. Basically, I got very kind of. I was like, oh, it's like my feeling on Sonic is, ugh.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I can't defend Sonic. Like I can't. Like I don't. If you don't like it, which obviously you weren't a huge fan, like I'm not gonna try and change your mind on that. Like it's just not the best film ever. But I just personally really gravitated towards it.
I can see how people can like it. So
Yeah,
nothing against you.
and everyone
All
knows
right,
I have trash movie opinions. So
like Michael Bay, your top one.
well,
Was
you
it?
didn't you didn't even put Tarantino or Christopher Nolan on your list, and they are definitely your favorite directors. So I can't really.
No, but I said upcoming directors, right? I specified it in a certain way in that last.
That is true.
True. All right, let's move on to my number one. So this film, I think, may have been the last like new film I saw in the cinema. I'm pretty sure. Actually, wait, I saw the black and white version of Parasite after, like just at the start of March, around then. And I watched like a bunch of older films in the cinema before they closed down. But I'm pretty sure this was the newest film that I saw. And this was the first time this year that I walked out of the cinema and was like, oh, holy shit, this is like a masterpiece. This is the film that I've been waiting for. Like, I had a lot of those moments over the last few years because I saw films every year, hundreds of new films. So I got through, I could wade through the films and see the bad stuff, see the okay stuff, see the good stuff, and then see those masterpieces that I think are. And so this film is The Invisible Man. And I was always really hyped for this film because I absolutely loved Upgrade, Lee Whannell's first like film recently. Like I think he directed one of the Insidious films, and then he did Upgrade, and Upgrade was just so shocking to me. I went in, I was like, these trailers are cool. Went in, like, literally blew my socks off that film. It's so incredibly sharp and well done, and I love. It's one of the best uses of action since like The Raid, I would say. Like it's so good, and just the camera movement, the direction, the cinematography, and this applies for The Invisible Man as well. It's definitely my favorite film of 2020. I love all the other films, but it's clearly my favorite, and I think Whannell does such a good job. I think he really masters the tension to a point that it's almost unbearable, and it's shocking. Some great moments. Honestly, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. Like I was sweating, and it just never lets up. It never lets up, and this is down to how well thought out the film is. It's directed incredibly well, and along with that goes the cinematography. I love how it's all it's all got a purpose. There is no waste to this film. Just like looking down the corridor, it pans to the corridor, but nothing happens. Happens maybe a few, like half an hour later, pans to the corridor, nothing happens. And just those little moments where you get to see this guy, this director, he knows how to create tension. Kind of like 7500, you feel that Lee Whannell is in complete control. He knows this is going to evoke some sort of response in the audience, and it really is one of the most effective films I've seen. And I think he really builds this distinct atmosphere through the use of filmmaking, and that's something that I keep on emphasizing. I don't think like I can enjoy a film with not so good filmmaking, but when a film is excellent, it's got excellent filmmaking. To me, that's what makes a good film. And especially like my favorite genre is horror, and my favorite is psychological horror, and this fits perfectly into that. And just the fact that this got so under my skin, paired with the cinematography, which is completely my style. It's very simple, it's very to the point, lots of wide angles, and basically a lot of empty space. You really feel that tension because in that empty space you're thinking, could the invisible man be there? What's going to happen? And there's this one pivotal scene where she's at a restaurant and something goes down. Like, I'm pretty sure you've seen the film, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Something goes down there, and people in the cinema lost their shit. I was like, whoa. And I literally was just like thinking to myself, man, what a film at that point. I was just like clapping to Lee Whannell in my head. And I really think this is one of the best horror films of, of the recent years. You can't say of the decade anymore because this is 2020. But the horror is cruel, it's blunt, it's incredibly inventive in the way that it imagines this really realistic and grounded take, but also it's really stylized, and you really feel everything that goes behind it, all this bluntness and everything. It's just it's all in service of this tension that constantly builds, and it's really amazing once shit hits the fan. Like, shit hits the fan a lot, and I love the fact that it holds nothing back. And I think this film is just so good, and it's easily my favorite film of the year.
Yeah, I mean, The Invisible Man was a film that has gone down in my estimations as I've seen it. Like, I think this is like one of the more high production value films from Blumhouse, and I kind of went into it thinking, oh yeah, this would be enjoyable. I'll like this, and I think it's good. Like, I did enjoy it. I don't necessarily agree with the statement that was thrown around about modern horror masterpiece. I don't think that's particularly well used for this film. I think that the film is good, and I think it does use a lot of really creative techniques. Like I said, I think the filmmaking, particularly Lee Whannell, like Upgrade is a great film, and I think that his talents definitely are shown through here, particularly with the camera work. You see, as you say, those shots where you can kind of there's nothing there, but you can tell that there's something there. Those shots are very creepy, and the film does genuinely get a few good jump scares out of me. Like the scene with the paint can is genuinely a shocking moment, and the restaurant scene is also genuinely very shocking. I think the film does has a lot of really good moments in it. Also, cast wise, like Elizabeth Moss is fantastic in the film. She's great. I really liked Aldous Hodge. I really enjoyed him in the film as well, especially because I saw him in What Men Want, which he did stand out to me in that movie, despite how much I hated the film. But in this one, he was actually really, really good, and he actually was in a good movie for once, which was nice. I just found the film to be a bit just fine. It didn't really grab me in a way that I thought it was going to, in the way it has a lot of other people. I just think the film is good and not much else, unfortunately. And like I said, I think the phrase modern horror masterpiece I think was thrown around quite a bit for this film, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But, as I said, I think that the film definitely did speak to a lot of people, and it did reach a lot of people, especially you, evidently. So it's really cool that there is obviously that community for it. Just for me personally, it didn't quite work for me on that level as it did for other people. But my number one for the year, and again, this is just purely entertainment value. Oh God, I didn't even expect. Again, a surprise. I didn't expect to like this movie anywhere near as much as I did based on the other two films in the franchise. But that's Bad Boys for Life. This film is just pure fun in a movie. Like, this is the most fun I've had in the cinema in a while. Like, genuinely just an absolutely hilarious action-thrilled ride that I was completely on board with. And again, I'm not even a fan of the Bad Boys series. Like, I watched the first two and I didn't really care for them. I thought they were fine. But this one was just a completely different film. Like, this one completely stepped up to a whole new level. I kind of describe this as the Fast Five of the Bad Boy series, in the sense that this is where the franchise really came into its own and really did its own thing and just completely let loose. And I think this film was just brilliant to watch. It was so much fun. The chemistry between Smith and Lawrence they're just on absolute top form in the film, and their banter and their chemistry, it's just, you can't take your eyes off them when watching them, because they are absolutely brilliant all the way through. The action was really good, especially because Smith and Lawrence, they're not the young guys that they used to be, especially when you look at Bad Boys 1 and 2. They're not that age anymore, but they are still able to convincingly pull off these action sequences. I think the directors, who are both, they're both pretty newbie directors. The fact they were able to pull off a big, studio movie like this was really impressive. The first two were directed by my boy Michael Bay, but he did not return for this. Although he does return for the most hilariously weird cameo of the year, which was very good. But like I say, these two guys, I think they did a really good job with this, and I know they've had quite a lot of meetings with other big studios after this, which I'm very happy about, because I think they did a really good job with this. Also, the villains really stood out to me. Like, the main villain of this movie was sick. I thought he was just badass and just really cool and fun. And the way they kind of tie it into Will Smith's character, I thought was insane. And I also really liked how crisp the movie was. It looked really clean. It just makes the action and the scenes themselves feel a lot more entertaining to look at, and it was a very vibrant movie, despite how yellow it is. It is a lot more, it's a bit less egregious than the first two in regards to its yellowness, and it's not quite Extraction in regards to its yellowness, but it's still, again, a very vibrant movie to look at. I also love the ammo team, which was like the little assembled team that they got in the film, which had like Vanessa Hudgens and Alexander Ludwig, who I've met Alexander Ludwig. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met at a convention. He's fantastic. I just thought that team, that concept was really good. And I think this film has really reinvigorated life into this series. Like, obviously, Bad Boys 1 and 2 have always kind of been cult hits. They've kind of always had their audience, but they weren't exactly these huge films, especially from Michael Bay, on the level like the Transformers films. They were never these absolutely huge hits. But this one, I think, has really reinvigorated people into the franchise and reinvigorated its life itself, which is why I kind of describe it as the Fast Five of the series. Like, Fast Five, when that movie came out, it really reinvigorated the series and kind of brought a whole new audience in and thrusted the franchise into a new direction. I think that's what Bad Boys for Life has done. And obviously, we've seen, ever since the movie came out, that Bad Boys 4 has been greenlit. So they are doing a sequel to this. And they do set up a sequel at the end. And they have this post-credit scene that I thought was great. I really am excited for that, and as I said, it was genuinely surprising. It was genuinely a shock. I didn't expect to like the movie as much as I did. I'm not exactly a fan of the franchise, but wow, this movie was fun. And I do own this on Blu-ray as well. I can't wait to go back and check this out, because I nearly saw this a second time in the cinema, but I didn't. I have only seen it once, so we'll have to see how it holds up on a rewatch. But I had such a good time with it, and that's the thing. That's what it is. That's what cinema's all about to me. Like, if I'm entertained all the way through and I just have a brilliant time, that's what's most important to me, and for me, Bad Boys for Life completely exemplifies that. So for me, like, this is the most fun movie I've seen in a long time in the cinema, and I just couldn't get enough of it, and I still think about it all the time, and I can't wait to actually finally sit down and watch it again, whenever that may be.
Oh, I mean, I can't say anything against it. I really liked it, so a good pick.
Yeah, so that's our top 5 of the year so far. Obviously, as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, 2020 is definitely I think we could say, an unorthodox year. when it comes to film. It's not quite been the year we were all thinking or the year we expected it to be, so our lists may not even change that much if nothing comes out by the end of the year. Bad Boys for Life may very well be my favourite film of 2020 by the end of it, in a year when we're supposed to have Tenet in June. Bad Boys for Life may end up being my number one movie of the year. But anyway, is there anything you'd like to add to this before we wrap this up?
Oh, I think that's about it. We've got our favorite films, and I agree. I I wouldn't be mad if The Invisible Man stayed my number one because it's that good in my opinion. But I would like to see some other stuff. I hope cinemas open, and I hope things get kind of back to normal soon by the end of the year, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we get to see at least a few more new releases by the end of the year. It'd be great if we at least got Tenet before the end of the year. That'd be great. Because I have to say, I don't expect June to be released this year. I can't see that happening. But we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, let us know in the comment section down below what is your top 5 favorite movies of the year so far. You know, it can be, obviously we know it's not a huge list, but I'm sure you'll be able to assemble one. So make sure you let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, what do you think about cinemas reopening? Are you confident about going, or are you a bit more wary? Just let us know what's your stance on the situation. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, guys, I've been Dec,
I've been Ben.
and we hope to see you guys again in the next episode.